I love that, Alex.
Hello, Pat.
I'm not going to try and keep up with you on accents. You're pretty good.
I'm awesome. No,
Do the old Michael Caine impression for everyone real quick before we begin.
hello. My name is Michael Caine, and I'm here with you on the Pat Flynn Show. You might remember me from such movies as Anna and Her Sisters and Jaws 4.
Jaws, the Revenge.
We did it for people who don't understand that reference. Pat and I did a video that we thought should have gone viral and really did.
Yeah. Apparently, people didn't get it. That's all right.
Yeah. Well, let's amend that. The plebes didn't get it. I think that the people with a higher appreciation for bad impersonations of Michael Caine just loved it. But yeah, it was a kettlebell swing tutorial video with me pretending to be Michael Caine. And
I mean, what a fantastic idea. I really thought that was going to be it for us, Alex. It was skyrocket straight to fame, but nope.
It was genius. Well, and I thought the same thing. And John,
I think got like an even split of likes and dislikes.
yeah, it was pretty even for sure. But I liked it that John had John was the cameraman for our shenaniganry in Pennsylvania. And
yeah.
He came up with the dialogue, and then also he's like, well, what we're gonna do to make it actually look somewhat like I'm Michael Caine, and he's like, why don't you just like puff your hair up, which is like has nothing to do with Michael Caine at all.
It just doesn't look like Alex, and
yeah, it just looks like like I literally just rolled out of bed and was like ready to go.
I'm going to have to link that in the show notes so people can indulge themselves. Was it you who told me that the way to do the Michael Caine accent is just to say my cocaine? Like you have a thing of cocaine, my cocaine, my cocaine,
my
cocaine. It does, yeah. That's pretty nifty. Hey, we're going to talk about stealing strength with smarter programming on today's episode. So stick with us. It's all about all gain, no pain.
Oh yeah.
So before we do it, how was your weekend, my friend? Do anything crazy, exotic, or exciting?
The weekend was very good. Crazy, exotic, or exciting. I moved some new furniture into my place, which is real exciting. Yesterday was the first night of Hanukkah, and so got together.
Happy Hanukkah, my friend.
Thank you very much. Got together, lit the menorah, and that was a lot of fun. And
do you even have anything in your apartment right now? Because this is the second time we've had one of these conversations, and it just looks like you're in an empty room.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I could.
You're an aesthetic.
The mini tour. I don't have anything on the walls, unfortunately. I've got like furniture here, but the walls are bare. I really need to do something about that.
No, you don't. If anybody were questioning your minimalism, let them now be absolutely convinced that you practice everything that you preach.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. What would have been perfect is if I just had nothing in the apartment and it was just like totally bare. But alas, I did not do that. I also thought about when I was shopping for couches, for example, I saw one, but the walls are all white, as you can see behind me, for those of you who are watching the video podcast. And there was a really nice looking white couch that I wanted to buy. But the problem is that like it would have blended in too much with the wall and it would have looked tacky, I think. So I ended up getting a blue one, but how great would that have been? It was like all white furniture, like everything just looks like absurd, That
would have been awesome.
Yeah, but I chickened out and I just didn't do it.
That's all right. So good weekend though. What did I do? Yesterday was pretty good. I actually had an extended fast yesterday, and then I had 2 beers and a hunk of cheese about the size of a house cat. So
nice.
Successful, yeah. All in all, successful. Sundays are fun days, as we say around here. Yeah, Sundays are fun days here. But other than that, not much going on, dude. So, shall we dive in? Last we spoke, we ripped on men's health, as we often do, and we wanted to talk about training efficiency, ways of stealing strength with smarter programming. Alex came up with that title, so now he has to deliver on it.
All right. This is something that I've long been interested in, and I think that this is actually kind of a common topic amongst a lot of like strength coaches and trainers and that sort of a thing. Because, in fact, I heard Dan John talking about something recently. Like if he said in an answer to somebody's question, if you got like 3 rabbits in front of you, if you try to chase them all, you're going to catch none of them. So you want to just pick one rabbit, chase that, and then you can go after, catch it, and then go after the others. And your strength training is very, very similar. And same thing with endurance, conditioning, whatever. Really, I think what you have to do if you want to maximize your gains, you have to focus on what is going to get you the closest to, let's say, a future goal. And I have some examples that I think would be helpful. But in terms of conceptualizing first, you might think about it like, for example, if you want to do like a one-arm push-up, but you can only do like 10 regular push-ups, if you're focusing on the one-arm push-up, you're going to put in so much work for so little output or so little result. Whereas if you focus on getting really good at just regular push-ups and a wide variety of them, you're going to set yourself up for a much shorter path to a one-arm push-up in the future. So that's simply, and it's something that's repeatable. You can do push-ups daily. They're pretty good for the in terms of like a frequency of your training. So,
yeah, it's like the one gym class exercise that's actually worth doing, and it's the one that I could never. Well, back when they still had pull-ups in gym class, did you ever have to take those like middle school fitness tests?
We did. I don't know if it was in middle school. I remember in elementary school, I think we might have done the presidential fitness test, the one that John F. Kennedy had.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what we did. Ours was, and I always hated it, right? Because middle school was like, this was like my Porker prime, right? This is what I had been working up to my entire life with all those animal crackers and video games. So there was a sit-up test, which I would always crush. So it just goes to show how telling that is. Yeah. A pull-up test, which I couldn't even get to the bar. A push-up test, that was a joke. A sit and reach test, also a joke for me. And then a mile run was what I remember. So normally I would do my very darndest to just skip school that day. But alas, I was subjected to it a couple of times. And even though I have qualms about how they assess fitness, I at least like looking back, I appreciated that there was some standard that was trying to. Of course, they were terrible at promoting that standard or getting to that standard. I mean, we'd have gym class like, I don't know, twice a week for like maybe 30 minutes of activity. So it was like, what do you expect? Of course, we're all fat and terribly unhealthy in middle school. We live in Michigan. I remember when I was in Michigan at the time, like it was battling Mississippi statistically for like the fattest state in America. And then I moved out of Michigan and suddenly it like went dropping down. I'm like, hold on, what's going on here? But anyways, that's all beside the point. Standards, good thing. We should have them. Maybe not exactly those standards. Physical education, also a good thing. But back to what you were saying, good sir.
Yeah, speaking of standards, actually, there was I have to say, John F. Kennedy really did have a lot of great ideas in terms of physical fitness and physical preparedness amongst the general populace. I believe he had a pilot program. I don't think he designed it necessarily, but I think he gave it the go-ahead, or he was connected in some way to a high school in California called La Sierra, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, like the students there, you see some of the videos and you're like, I don't think there's like a class in one place of the United States that could do any of this stuff now. Like we're talking about, they had like these, like on monkey bars, rather than just going on the monkey bars like people normally would, they had these little handles that hung down, so you had to grab onto them as if you were climbing a rope.
It's like a Ninja Warrior course.
Yeah, and they would grab onto them, and while keeping their hands basically at around chin level. So we're not talking like hanging at like a dead hang. They would monkey bar their way across it. So I mean, they were basically at the top of a one-arm chin-up position, like on either hand, like alternate going across the monkey bars.
That's pretty nuts for a general public education.
Could you imagine if that were the standard? I mean,
oh my gosh, nobody would pass it. Nobody.
No, not only would nobody pass it, but it would really change the way that we train. So that, because if you have to train to pass certain standards, and let's say your school's constantly failing, like the administrators are going to be like, well, we're going to have to do something about this. So we're going to have to, institute maybe some more like legitimate, like physical activity, whether the students like it or not. And go from there. But to think about that, if you were at that age and you could do something like that, and you could traverse like a monkey bars type of situation with just like these handles that are kind of like ropes hanging down, and do it not at arm's length, but like, at full flexion at the top of the movement.
Yeah.
How many pull-ups would you be able to do?
That's a good standard, because you need to be able to check. That's why I like pull-ups in general. They're you have to be able to check a lot of boxes to even just do a few pull-ups. You can't be massively overweight. You've got to have decent upper body strength. You have to have decent grip strength. So you have to have a lot going for you physically to be able to do a pull-up. Unlike being able to do a sit-up, I was the absolute proof case that you did not have to be in shape to do a bunch of sit-ups in middle school. And then there's the whole nutrition side of it. I don't know what school lunch programs are like now, but I remember every day I was one of those hot lunch kids, right? So I would be able to get like a slice of pizza, a giant pretzel, a cookie, and a Choco Taco every single day for lunch. And like looking back, that's pretty sweet. I wish I still ate that. At least the Choco Taco part. Remember those things?
I do, man.
Yeah, I can't have the last time I had a Choco Taco. But that was a problem too. Anyways, I don't want to get too far off point here, but that's cool to hear about. I've never heard of those standards. I don't know if that would be too aggressive, but certainly like if you could do that, if you could traverse something like that, yeah, you've got to have a lot of other ducks in a row, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
cool.
One of the things that that I was mentioning is that, again, if you could do that, how easy would pull-ups be? Like, how hard would you have to train them? Maybe not as much. Like, that would be like a little bit would be a big bang for your buck. So keep that in mind. A little bit of one thing being a big bang for your buck, and another thing on a level that more people can relate to. We talked about the pull-up test and then the sit-up test. Like, if you can do a fair amount of pull-ups, sit-ups are a breeze, because pull-ups are a great ab exercise, and particularly if you do them properly. So sit-ups, which is something that, like you pointed out, even at perhaps your least fit, you could still knock out the pull-up.
That's a very polite way of putting it, Alex. Thank you.
My genteel Midwestern nature requires that I try to say things in such a polite way. But yeah, I mean, think about that. If you had been able to nail that pull-up test and without doing any sit-ups, you still would have nailed the sit-up test like easily.
Yeah.
So ideally, that's how you want to set up your training. If you're a busy professional, you want to have a little bit goes a long way and gives you more than what you're training for.
I like that. And this echoes a few ideas that were in my previous podcast. We can maybe bounce a few of those back and forth. But the more because I talked about solutions to skinny fat, and essentially I was like, hey, strength training's first, protein is second, walking, and then sleep. And then at the end of the episode, I'm like, that's just a solution for everything. Right? That's not just a solution to skinny fat. Like, that's it. Like, let's like boil it down to the fundamental secrets. I hate the term secrets and hacks because it's really just fundamentals and basics that people forget about. Lift heavy, walk a lot, fast occasionally, get a good night's sleep. If you can just do all that stuff, you're going to have like 80 to 95% of pretty much all the fitness results you could possibly want out of hardcore specialization and like competitive sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fundamentals are, at some point you have to go beyond them, but if you don't have them dialed in, like you're really not going to get that far. I mean, you might make some short-term improvements, but it's not going to last. It won't be like, as you say in the Strong On workshop, it won't be a sticky skill. Like anything you grasp will be very, very fleeting. So like strength really is, it has to be built on a foundation of health. And, you talk about the protein, you talk about sleeping, walking. I mean, 3 out of 4 of those things for, skinny fat solution are purely health oriented. I mean, they have nothing to do with strength. And like, so 75% of it is just basic stuff that will take you so far.
Yeah. And the point I made in that episode, and I think this will resonate with you, is that people who were skinny fat, which was me, like, so after I was properly fat, then I was skinny fat. And I was skinny fat, not because I wasn't working hard. I was just working inefficiently. So I was eating a ton of carbs, very low protein, and I was just doing a lot of moderate intensity cardio. I was doing a lot of jogging, a lot of spinning around on my little bicycle. Very cute, but it wasn't very effective.
Sure.
And, and I kind of want to emphasize that point is that a lot of people, I know a lot of people you've trained, a lot of people I trained who kind of fall in that category of skinny fat are often extremely hard workers. They're working out a lot. They're really trying to eat a certain way in a disciplined way. So it's more a matter of effectiveness and efficiency than it is sheer work effort. And then what we find is if we can just reprioritize or reorganize or reorient our efforts, we can actually get even more results with less effort. And that to me is minimalism, right? When you have that perfect intersection between effectiveness, which is doing the right things, and efficiency, which is doing things right. And it doesn't mean we're trying to be lazy. I don't want people to think that being a minimalist just means doing very little, but it does mean doing the least that you need to do to get from A to B. And when you think about it like that, well, why would you want to do anything else? If you only need to, the analogy that you commonly hear is like, if you only need to cook the chicken breast for 8 minutes, it's stupid to cook it for 9 minutes because then you've ruined it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you only need to do X to get Y, then why are you doing X plus 1? You might actually frustrate getting Y if you do that. So it's kind of dumb to take anything but a minimalist approach when you really understand what we mean by it. Because when would you ever want to be less effective or less efficient than you can be? Now, this is all kind of theoretical because you're never going to be perfectly effective and you're never going to be perfectly efficient. But you should always be reassessing and reevaluating, am I being as effective and efficient as I possibly can be right now, given what my goals were? And when I was figuring all this fitness stuff out, especially in that skinny fat phase, I was working really, really hard. I was a hard worker. I've always been generally a hard worker at most things that I'm interested in. And the reason I was overweight growing up is I just wasn't interested in fitness at the time. It just came later. So it wasn't for a lack of effort. It was just for a lack of knowledge and efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like what you said about the hard work thing, because think about it this way. If you have to dig like a 3-foot hole in the ground and you do it with a spoon, that's going to be really hard work. If you do it with a shovel, it's going to be a lot easier work. But what's going to get you there quicker, the hard work or smart work, right? Like now people think smart work, that means you're not working hard. No, it means you're being efficient while you're working hard, because it's not necessarily like, I don't think that digging a 3-foot hole is particularly taxing or difficult, but given a choice, like why would you take anything that would be less time efficient, less energy efficient, and give you less for it? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, unless the goal is simply to sweat. And for some people that might be it. But for most people, the goal is I want to achieve some amount of physical performance, or I want to achieve some body composition goal. There's some tangible objective outcome that they're working towards. Like, I need to dig a hole that's 3 feet deep. I'm not just trying to get tired digging holes. Like, that isn't my goal.
Exactly.
I need to plant something.
Right.
And in that sense, why would you want to expend more energy than is necessary to get the job done? So I think that is a nice analogy, Alex. Very lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And this actually reminds me, because this ties in great with fitness, because you talked about minimalism, and I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about what you mean by minimalism, because we also see other programs out there that are only like 2 or 3 moves in perpetuity. Like some of the really there's some powerlifting programs that you'll see like that, where it's only bench, squat, and deadlift. It's not necessarily bad, and it certainly works for some people. But then eventually you'll reach a point where it's like, okay, you've gotten about all you're going to get from just doing this program. Like, it's time to move on or add a few things. So adding things to a program that has maybe stalled out can still be minimalist. Like, because again, if you get to the point where you're digging with a spoon rather than a shovel, like, to me, the minimalist thing to do would be to, add a tool that's going to help you. Brett Contreras, a very famous strength coach, he has talked about how he's had people who have who he's trained. They came to him and they were doing like so much work to build muscle, and he would drastically cut down the amount of volume that they were doing, and they would get better results. And part of it was because they couldn't recover. They were digging with this. The other part was that, they're doing it kind of half-heartedly, because they're like, I need to get in as much volume as I can possibly handle. And so, they're not really focusing on other things that are important for you to be more efficient and effective, which would be like muscle activation,
intensity,
exactly. Like how close you push to failure, because with muscle building, that's an important factor. Strength,
indeed,
not
it
so
is.
much. And so, like, that's minimalist, and the people are still working hard, but the hard work is focused into a smaller amount of volume, and it gave them great results.
And you make a good point. At least minimalism for me, it doesn't mean like one particular thing. It doesn't mean living out of a backpack. It doesn't mean swings and get-ups. Minimalism is a framework and an approach we use. It's a strategy to try and systematically provide a series of steps to a certain goal based on what we think is going to be the most effective and efficient procedure. That's it. So depending on what your goal is, how you go about it from a minimalist perspective could look wildly different. Between people or just between phases of your own life. So I think people need to kind of zoom out and understand, like, what are the principles here we're talking about with minimalism? And then for me and what I do, and this is largely you too, Alex, especially for Strong On, is I combine minimalism with generalism. Is we are not trying to be hardcore hyper specialists. I'm not training professional bodybuilders. I'm not training professional powerlifters. I'm training people who want a both and approach to strength and conditioning and health and weight loss and all of that, right? Who want to be strong and lean, muscular and mobile, and all goals in life require managing compromise. And if you want to be a generalist, that's awesome, but that's going to exclude certain options necessarily, and that's fine. That's cool. Same thing. Like if you want to be a hyper specialist, if you want to be the best in the world at something, that too is going to exclude certain options. And one of those options might just be health in certain regards. That's the price you pay for being a hyper specialist. Is you will often have to give up some element of health, joint health, kidney health, whatever it is, just to achieve an extremely high level of performance. And that's just the nature of the game. But that isn't the game that I'm playing. You know, minimalism and generalism are sort of the two core pillars of Strong On. And part of that, to your point, Alex, is because I think fitness should be, for most people, most of the time, health promoting, not health detracting. Exactly. Especially since certainly I'm not, and the vast majority of people that I work with do not have any aspirations of being the number one person in the world at powerlifting, bodybuilding, or taekwondo or UFC. It just is. It's frustrating to see people getting hurt with a fitness approach when that's unnecessary. Yeah. Again, kind of a side point. Why don't we talk about, unless there's something you want to add to that?
No, I think that about covers it. Actually, I think this is a good transitional moment.
Yeah, why don't we talk about some more of these principles of how to be a little bit smarter with programming? Let me bounce this off you. Let me ping this off your head, my friend. The other podcast I was talking about the utility of training on the extremes and not spending too much time in the middle. And we talk about this at the Strong On Cert, which we're going to talk about the Strong On Cert at the end because we got another one coming up. And friends, we want you there. We're looking at you right through the YouTube screen.
Absolutely.
You're going to want to be there. You get to hang out with us hooligans for a weekend. It's a mighty fine good time. But the idea of training on the extremes is this. It comes back kind of to those principles I was talking about before. For a lot of these fitness goals, especially strength goals or body composition goals, you will make better, faster progress if you spend more time on the extreme ends of the intensity spectrum than in the middle. And what I mean by that, spending more time with high intensity resistance training and more time with low intensity brisk walking than, say, moderate amounts, long periods of moderate intensity forms of exercise like your traditional jogging, elliptical, any of that stuff. And it's not because I don't think that there's any use in the middle or that stuff is bad for you, but just from a pure matter of effectiveness and efficiency, spending more time on the extreme ends of the intensity spectrum and less time doesn't mean no time, but less time in the middle is going to be really helpful for a lot of people for a number of reasons. One is signaling strength and muscle growth. One is promoting a sort of positive hormonal cascade. Let's be honest, a lot of people who are really stressed, especially that skinny fat category, spend a lot of time in the middle, just wheeling away like the hamster on that treadmill, cranking their cortisol, getting even more stressed, not building strength, not building muscle, and they wonder why they're not making progress. Well, let's just reallocate that time. You don't even have to reallocate all of it, but just a good amount of it to the ends of the intensity spectrum, less time in the middle. I think you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck there. Your thoughts on this one, good sir?
I have to agree. I mean,
was that a stroke of genius or what?
That was perfect. I have no rebuttal. I don't know if anybody...
Of course not. We would just kick you right off this channel.
Exactly. This would be my last ever appearance on the Pat Flynn Show.
Dare disagree with me?
That's not what you're here for. You're here to be my choir, my echo chamber, as it were. No, I agree entirely, because one of the things to think about is some of the things that we know, and it doesn't take like a scientific study to know, is that the greater your strength is, the easier it is to build endurance, because your rate of perceived exertion is quite a bit lower. So for example, if you have very strong legs, and somebody else who wants to take up running but has weak legs, and you're both at more. Let's say you can both start by running, and you only get like 10 minutes, and you're totally exhausted. Well, the one who has stronger legs is going to find that he or she is going to make a lot faster progress, just by virtue of the fact that not only are they building on a foundation of strength, which maybe they built with very low reps,
Yes.
but the person who spent some time in the middle, maybe doing some leg work, but they're not very strong per se. They just maybe got to the point where they would get tired. They would just do some, I don't know, some goofy stuff in a group fitness class or whatever. That person can still make gains, but it's going to take a lot longer amount of time. So when you do decide that you want to go more into the middle, so whether that is, let's say, kettlebell complexes with short rest periods in between, or jogging for a long period of time, you're going to make faster results if you've spent your time walking, and if you've spent your time, let's say, doing some harder stuff with a lot more rest in between. So lower rep strength work and what have you. So that's a very good approach.
And to that, I would say, amen. Actually, this Friday when I was working with the Crusher, my personal trainer, Julie, broad set of shoulders, firm handshake, loves Arby's, a real patriot. She's going to kill me when she watches this podcast. Luckily, she has no interest. Luckily, she has no interest in who I am or what I do at all. So we're good. Very smart, strong young lady, but she wants to do the TSC. So I was actually training her, really. We were going over the kettlebell snatch. And I reminded her of this point. I'm like, your technique's pretty good. We can tame the arc a little bit more. Here's some cues, blah, blah, blah. But you have an advantage because you're a power lifter. So no matter what, the fact that you can just by your pure brute strength hoist more weight off the ground than most people, that's going to make these snatches feel a lot easier. Now, that increases your potential, like you said, but you still have to do the snatches to get good at the technique. So you still have to do the specific work. But having that baseline of strength, which Julie has, grip strength, just raw hinging strength. I mean, she can just put the weight up relatively easily. So now it's a matter of, okay, let's just get the wind up, let's get the technique going, and you're going to do pretty well. So that's a kind of a real life example there, where since she already had focused so much on just raw brute strength, she has a sort of built-in advantage now when it comes to the higher rep stuff, specifically kettlebell snatching. Now, the mistake would be not to fill in that capacity, to ignore the specificity. It's a both and. You do need both. And that's the problem, is you see people sometimes do one or the other. They'll just do the heavy, the heavy lifts, the heavy deadlifts or whatever. But then their technique isn't there and their wind sucks, and then they fail on the snatch test. Or they just do snatches and then they constantly struggle with the intensity of it because they're weak. They're just not strong enough. So that's a really good point. Again, where focusing on the extreme, the intensity, and getting as strong as you can will increase your capacity for the endurance. And then it's just a kind of a matter of just bringing that potential up or bringing that capacity up and refining your technique from there. So, the Crusher, like I said, it's funny. It's these personal you came to one of the training sessions. They're always fun. Like I said, I don't do good with taking orders unless, Alex, it's to get on the dance floor.
Oh, believe me, I know. And I can attest to that fact.
But no, that's a good point. And then the walking component to that is really good, because walking, again, it's sort of recovery promoting. It doesn't have that same quivering stress effect of just being on the treadmill in front of CNN, watching CNN. Get outside, walk, and breathe air and look at trees. And even when it's chilly, it's good. Just get outside and walk. It's so much more, I think, health promoting, recovery promoting, plus the intensity level of that is really good, especially if you're somebody who's got that last 5 to 7 pounds of body fat to lose. So again, I would argue you're better off on the extremes from strength, aesthetics, body composition, and generally performance as well. And that doesn't mean spending no time in the middle, because we just said you still got to fill gaps, and you have to identify those gaps and be like, okay, I do need to get my wind up. I do need to do some conditioning. Great. Take care of that as it comes along, as you need to. But spending more time on the extremes is a way to steal strength with smarter programming. Another principle, Alex, I think we could jam on here that I used the other day that I talked about, kind of more in relation for general productivity, but I think it's a good minimalist principle, is this kind of idea of 1-3-5. And this is something I try to use in many different areas, not just fitness, but writing and business and everything else, and music, is what's the one thing you can do every day that's going to really move the needle? And identify that. What is the most effective thing that even if I just got this one thing done, I will be closer to point B tomorrow than I am today. And then whatever that is, come hell or high water, you need to get at least that one thing done. Maybe it's just 20 minutes of resistance training, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever. Then with focus on the big lifts, maybe it's even just one lift. Who knows? Depends on the goal. Then you have 3 things that are still important, maybe not as critically important as that one thing, but will still move the needle, and we should try to get them done. And maybe that's where your brisk walk comes in, and making sure you get enough protein or whatever else. And then you have like the icing factor. So things like, I say 5 things, but it could be anything, like a list of some other things that if you get them done, it's gravy, it's groovy, good on you. But you don't need to cry in the shower or feel super guilty if you don't finish that as well. And that's a framework that's always helped me on just a very practical, and it's a good kind of mental exercise too, in a sense that it kind of makes you think, okay, if I only had the chance to do one thing today, or if I only had 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week to reach my goal, what should I do? And those can be very clarifying exercises. And if you can't figure it out yourself, then what they can do is they should cause you to reach out to somebody like Aleks and be like, hey, I have this goal. What would your one thing be in this situation? Or what would you do if you only had 15 minutes? And a lot of times that's the case. Like maybe you don't know, and that's fine. Talk to a coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that, Pat and I would like to talk a lot about, to some degree, not necessarily a lot, but, hacks and shortcuts in particular. Like, shortcuts don't mean like you're tricking your biology. It means that you're doing what it's going to take to get results more quickly. And hiring a coach is like probably one of the best shortcuts there is. Like seriously, getting an extra set of eyes, or in my case, 4, on me, on
8 if you hire us both.
That's right. We should hire each other. Could you imagine?
Mind blown.
Julie,
the crusher would crush me.
Yeah, she might crush me. It's that would be.
She'd crush both of us.
Probably at the same time.
At the same time, yeah, absolutely.
And then
just pin us both down. Yeah, just noogie.
Oh God, no, thanks. No, but really, like, I've always made the fastest progress when I've had somebody take a look and just say, even just like, do this one thing differently. And a lot of times that's all it really takes. It might be one movement, might be one little technique pointer, but the amount of time that it's going to take for you to figure that stuff out on your own, it could be the equivalent of digging a hole with a spoon.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll bring back up the example with the crusher. She was doing her snatches, and again, not bad, but there was kind of some squatty movement, and the arc was pretty wild. And I just gave her the one cue. I'm like, hey, just imagine at the top that you're just throwing this kettlebell aggressively into your stomach, moving your hips out of the way. Fixed everything immediately. And she was like, wow, amazed by it. I'm like, how did you learn that before? And she's like, well, I taught that on the way up. You're supposed to do like a high pull type of thing. So I'm like, don't try and learn the snatch on the way up. Like, trying to think through a ballistic movement as you're doing a ballistic movement doesn't work. No. But if you can think at the pause points of how I should execute, that is just a much more intuitive. And again, it was that one thing that, maybe she would have figured it out eventually. But she admitted, like, oh, you just saved me all this time and frustration with just one simple little key. And it's not even a genius thing, right? It's like somebody taught me that once, however many years ago, and you just pass it on. But who knows how many calluses that spared her, or how much, that has increased her efficiency thereafter. But like you said, it's not like shortcuts don't exist. They do. The problem is in the fitness industry, they've got a bad name because you see those stupid ads all the time, like the one shortcut, like this one weird trick, right? Yeah. But so like they've got like this gimmicky marketing crap attached to them, but so people are kind of repulsed, and to a degree rightly so, by the idea of like mentioning shortcuts. But they definitely are out there. And by shortcuts, we just mean like, here's A, here's B. What is the shortest, straightest path to your goal? Let's figure that. That's the shortcut, rather than wandering all through the back roads and whatever. Fine if you want to do that, but if we want to just like, just get it done. Like you said, Aleks, like hire somebody who's been there, done that. And like, there's the 3 criteria for a coach. We've talked about this before, but somebody who practices what they preach, or at least did at one time, right? So if you're hiring like some like boxing coach and they're 87, okay, maybe they don't need to be a boxing champion anymore, right? But they've at least thrown some punches at some point in their life. Okay. Point number 2, which is more important, is that they have a predictable and repeatable process that they put people through that fetches predictable and repeatable results. That's the critical thing. Not just what have they done for themselves, but what are they able to do consistently for others? That's like the critical metric for evaluating a coach, I think. And then number 3 is, are they consistent with what they teach, but yet still willing to evolve in light of new evidence? Like, those are the 3 criteria I think that people should look for in a coach. Aleks meets maybe one of those.
I'd say half,
which is good enough.
Half of one.
Which is good enough.
All right, he's on his way.
But okay, any other secrets, hacks, strengths, shortcuts we want to talk about when it comes to programming or common mistakes that people fall into? We spent too much time in the middle, not enough time on the extremes, lacking priority and focus on what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I keep cutting off. You go.
Okay. I was going to say, going back to like the snatch example, this would actually be relevant, I think, to some people, because people like snatches because they rightly see them as a challenging, difficult movement. I actually don't like training the snatch all that much. And there are a couple of reasons why, because now, and I want you to think about this. One of the things I always do when I'm thinking about programming a movement is, can the person do it? Is it going to benefit them, or is it going to make the recovery more difficult, for example? And a few other metrics, but basically when it comes to like swings, ostensibly you can do them daily, in some amount or another. Snatches, if you did them daily, like, you would burn out very quickly. Snatches are a bit more technical. They're not so technical that, like, most people with mobility and strength requirements still are gonna struggle with it. But the bottom line is that, like, snatches just fatigue everything. And so if you want to get good at snatching, ironically, you don't want to snatch all that often. My recommendation is to just snatch heavy. And I can give you an example from myself. This is something I've done a couple of times, and I've also had other people do it, and it works quite well. So I had to recertify my level 2 kettlebell skills. And one of the things that you have to do is you have to pass the 100 rep snatch test in 5 minutes. And for gentlemen, that's 100 snatches with 53-pound kettlebell, or 24 kilos. For ladies, peanut, exactly. It's for ladies, it's like 12 to 16, an even smaller peanut. Now, one of the things that I did, I think I only snatched with a 32, number one, for my training for it. And I would do I think I did maybe 3 sessions like that before I did before I had to film my video of doing like 100. And I would do fewer than 10 reps on each hand, right? Focus mainly on technique, explosive power, just really trying to get up that top end explosive strength. And then in my pressing workouts as well, I would do a snatch before I pressed. So if I was doing a pressing ladder of, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, I would snatch 2 24-kilo bells overhead, lower them, press them, put them down, relax. Before, the 2-rep rung of the ladder, I would snatch it, lower it down, press it once, press it twice, so on and so forth. So I was really only doing non-exhaustive snatching, like stuff that was really like heavy and explosive and what have you. And when the time came for me to do the 100 rep snatch test, I posted the video actually in the Strong On group, because this was during your snatching protocol that you were putting people through.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I thought, well, this would be relevant to these folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 80 in a row with a 53-pounder, and then like just 2 brief sets of 10, and I was done in under 5 minutes.
Boom, boom. Look at that. Yeah. I like snatches. I'm with you. They're a cool move, but I agree with everything that you just said, and that goes back to the principle, right? You focus more on the extremes, the intensity elements, and then you just kind of filled in whatever gaps as you needed along the way. I remember the first time I did the snatch test at the CERT, I was easily the youngest person there. And I'm fairly certain the quickest snatch time was just over 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And that was pretty much the approach that I took. And I have videos. People think I'm just blowing wind. Go through my YouTube channel. I've done the Secret Service snatch test, a 10-minute one, piece of cake, peanut. I have like my 3 minute and 30-second videos on there. I paid my dues, people. Yeah. I remember one of my worst snatch test experiences was, this goes to show like kind of like trying to be ready for and capable for almost everything. This idea of generalism is, we were going down to train at Camp Lejeune, some of the special forces guys down there. And as soon as we got out of the van, the sort of leader of our little group was like, all right, everyone's doing the snatch test. And I thought about complaining, because like we just drove 13 hours in a van and like we haven't stretched and we're just going to hop right into the snatch. Then I'm like, well, hold on a minute. I'm here to train people who hunt terrorists. Yeah. I can't complain about doing a snatch test, right? And it's like, however hot it was, horridly humid, which that is the toughest thing about the snatch test. If your palms get sweaty, that was, so like I had to use every ounce of my grip strength just to stop that bell from flying out of my hand at that point. So I was very thankful that I allocated a good amount of my training to having a strong grip, because my strength was there, my conditioning was there, but I wasn't prepared necessarily specifically for like a wet, slick kettlebell handle, but we held on there. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if I would say that everybody should be able to hop out of a van and just do a snatch test as a general standard, but I'm willing to contemplate it, right? Because it's one of those things where you kind of have to have a lot of things going for you as well. You have to have decent conditioning. You have to have a good amount of strength and power. And then you have to also have technical proficiency. So certainly I think it makes sense as a standard in certs, because it shows, and we've talked about this before, it shows you care about something. It's not something that you could just do without some degree of dedicated practice, which that's cool. I like that. The idea, like, you have to care about something and you have to work towards something. And we're not just giving a little piece of paper to just anybody. Exactly. And then we can quibble of whether this is the best assessment or not. But the fact that we have some standard to show that you care and you're willing to work, I think is important. And then, okay, in terms of like physical aptitude, it does check a number of boxes. Now, it does not mean, I think people mistakenly assume that like if you can do the snatch test, you're a good coach. Of course not. Of course it doesn't mean that. Yeah, but that's what the other part of the certs are for, right? Bingo. That's where you learn to coach and teach these other things. So I don't know if that, because some people have tried to make that a criticism. Well, it doesn't prove you're a good coach. No, but I don't think it's supposed to either. But anyway.
It's basically, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, as much as I don't really dread the snatch test anymore, but it's kind of like a cat being thrown in the water. Like, it's not going to hurt the cat. It's just the cat doesn't like it. Well, yeah, exactly. I'm the same way with the snatches. Like, and to be honest, I'm actually kind of the same way with military pressing, because for as much as, people like rave about the military press, I just don't like to practice it. I like to, when I need to, I'll do it. Otherwise, I like doing other pressing movements,
handstand push-ups and all that. Yeah, dips. Yeah, dips are my personal favorite upper body. They feel great on my shoulders. I know they don't feel great on a lot of people's shoulders. I'm a dip monster. I can do a ton of weight on dips. Don't ask me to bench press. I won't do it. Too embarrassed. But I'll take head to head anyone on dips any day.
Pat's a dipopotamus, as a matter of fact.
Got it. We've all got our little tricks, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But no, the bottom line is I think that it is a good, it's a good standard to show that you, like you said, like you care about something and that you've put in the work, because it's really not, it's like, if you were to do the same thing with like 100 swings in 5 minutes, unless you're going quite heavy, it's really just not the same thing.
No, it's not
at all. So yeah, I think there are plenty of good criticisms about the snatch test, but I think saying that it's not going to make you a better coach is irrelevant, because doing a front squat's not going to make you a better coach either. You still get tested on that. Like, what's going to make you a good coach? I've had times when I've been like tweaked. I hesitate to say injured, because it wasn't like the injuries some people get, but like tweaked, and I couldn't perform a movement. I could still coach it. I could still teach people how to do it. I think that's far more important. But if you don't have the experience of what it takes to prepare yourself for something like that, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to even come close to relating to people who have the same sort of like mental stress about training anything that you might see as easy. Like, if you can't put yourself in their shoes, like, you definitely won't be a good coach.
Yeah, coaches need to be trained in empathy. Like, if you have never struggled through something and overcome that and failed too, like if you've never really like worked hard and just not succeeded, then it's going to be hard for you to empathize with somebody and relate and be an effective coach. So I'm with you 100%. Let's put a note on that, hang a flag on that. That'd be a good topic for our next conversation, the importance of empathy with coaches.
Sure. And
the struggles and the failures. Not that I have ever had any of those, but
no, certainly.
We could talk about your experience.
Exactly. I'll roll
but as far as coaching, let's chat a few minutes here about our upcoming Strong On certification, shall we?
It's a great idea.
Hint, hint, wink, wink. So friends, we've already got a ton of people signed up for this. So it's going to be a great group. It is, oh my gosh, Alex, I forgot the date. It's the weekend of May 16th, right?
I think so. Yeah.
right out at our headquarters in the Dragon Gym, which means I had to fly out for once. I used to live in the neighborhood right behind. It was a terrible commute, but now I actually have to come out from the Midwest. And it is a fantastic cert. It is built upon two pillars of our training philosophy, which we've discussed here. It's generalism and minimalism. How to become ready for and capable of almost everything. And using a lot of these principles, these programming principles that we've discussed to get from A to B in the most effective and efficient time possible. So it is a kettlebell focused cert, but we focus a lot more on programming and nutrition, the practical application, not just teaching you the technique. So the sort of disclaimer here is we want you to at least be somewhat familiar with the basics of like swings and get ups and stuff before coming to our cert, because we want to focus on teaching you how to program for various goals, specifically to become a generalist. And we want to coach you how to coach. So the kind of really cool thing about our certification is we teach you how to teach these movements, both in an individual format and a group format. And it's like all live and in the trenches, which is really, I think, fantastic. So you will be teaching, and we will be offering feedback and criticism, good criticism, healthy criticism on your actual coaching performance with live participants, which people say is an incredibly valuable experience. Because it's one thing to know a technique, it's another thing to be able to effectively communicate that technique and program for other clients, so that way they actually get results and continue to stick with you. So that's my general spiel. But Aleks, you've been involved in this cert since the very beginning. So anything that you think the gentle listeners should know and why they should hurry on over to sign up?
I think number one, I can't echo loudly enough what you said about it being a cert that you want to come in prepared for. Like we're going to teach you how to do the fundamental kettlebell exercises better. And that does start from the beginning, because you have to have a strong foundation. Like if you want to have a good swing, you got to be able to deadlift. If you want to have a good snatch, you got to be able to swing. So you're certainly we're going to cover technique in that regard. But we don't spend the amount of time on it that we do in other certs, because the point is that you want to get good at teaching these things. And so the entire certification is essentially learning the philosophies of not only how to successfully train yourself over a long period of time, but train your students if you are a personal trainer, and I think this is almost even more important, is being able to train your loved ones. Because quite often, we have people who look up to us, or they see us being strong, being fit, being in good shape, however they want to say it. And, being able to do something is not the same as being able to teach it. So having the ability to do it yourself, if you've already got like a foundational knowledge of the big 6 kettlebell exercises, or however many you might know, and then you learn how you can help meet someone where they are, that's what you're going to learn. So we're not going to teach you, like, if you've never swung a kettlebell before, this probably is not the cert for you.
Yeah. Don't start here. I mean, we'll fix your technique. Like we will refine it. But like Aleks said, it's time to move beyond. Like this isn't kindergarten anymore, right?
Exactly.
We're getting into programming, practical application, not just program design, but nutrition as well. And we really focus on these principles of generalism, ideas like short-term specialization.
Yeah.
All the things that actually I outline in my book, How to Be Better at Almost Everything, but we apply it, the rule of 80%, specifically to exercise programming and nutrition. And like Aleks said, you don't have to be a professional to join the cert. It's typically about 50-50 of people who are just enthusiasts, hobbyists, and people who really are professionals. And if you are a professional, there's a bonus part that makes the cert, I think, even more worthwhile. And that is the business mastermind component. So at the end of each of the days, we take anybody who's interested, and this is a free of charge component of the cert. And we do a roundtable mastermind where we just jam on everybody's business, whether you're starting a business, whether you already have a business and you want to open new locations, or whether you want to start a podcast, whatever it is, we analyze your goal and we give you that minimum effective dose that you need to get from A to B in your career, in the business world. And unanimously, people who come to the cert and take advantage of it say that component alone is worth the price of admission. Just to sit down with other business owners, Aleks, Sam, me, and help give you that roadmap to get from A to B in your career, in your professional career, has tremendously helped people, really has. And you can ask all the people in the Strong On group who've been through the cert, which is a lot now, if you have any other questions about it. So Aleks, unless you want to add anything else, like I said, the next cert, and contact Aleks if you follow him too, because I know he's got some special specialness and goodies that he's got for anybody who decides to attend.
Exactly.
So what's the best way to just email you or what?
Yeah, I would say email me. An easy way to do that too is if you're on my email list, or if you get on my email list, you can just hit reply to like any of my emails. Otherwise, it's Aleks@aleksalkin.com, but my name is spelled a little funny. It's ALEK as in Catherine, S as in Samantha, Aleks, and then at aleksalkin.com. Or you look me up on Facebook and just say, hey, I heard about X, Y, and Z. I'm interested.
Strong answer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's also fun.
And I will put the link to sign up in the show notes. We have a nice little PDF, so it can't hurt to get the PDF that has all the information about the cert, the dates, the cost, what you can expect while you're there, and the link to sign up. So that will be in the show notes. Give a little clicky click. And friends, thanks for tuning in to the Pat Flynn Show. I hope you're enjoying these video podcasts, as well as if you're just listening on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever Gidget or Gazmo.
Gizmo. Gidget or Gazmo. That's a new.
Yeah, Gidget. whatever. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about next time. Aleks, my friend, always a pleasure.
Pleasure was mine.